What would you like your legacy to be? How would you like to be remembered?
A very good question, actually.
I am joined by the legend that is Mr. Claus Hessler. Yeah!
Here we are, rock and roll, Ollie.
Welcome to the Europe Drum Show official podcast. Klaus will be gracing the main stage at the Europe Drum Show on Sunday, the 30th of March at 2:15. You have inspired so many players over the years. You've inspired the likes of Annika Niles, Daniel Adair, Johnny Rabb, and so many more. But before we kick off the interview, I wanted to know if it would be okay with you if we could play a game called This or That, where basically, Klaus, you just
Whatever.
have to pick one of the two
Yeah.
things you prefer and you don't have to give an explanation as to why.
Can I pick both?
If you want to.
I want to, or none at all. Is that going to be an option?
No, you've got to pick at least one.
Okay,
Bad Klaus.
okay, okay.
Okay. Uh, which has got the most iconic drum intro? Rosanna by Toto or Rock and Roll by Led Zeppelin?
Iconic, you say? Well,
Iconic.
iconic. Most likely rock and roll.
Okay, great shout. Which do you prefer, Apple or Spotify?
Apple.
Okay. Streaming your music or physical releases?
Physical, I would prefer, really.
Okay. Playing an indoor venue or a festival, an outdoor festival?
I don't care at all. But but
Best answer.
but just for the sake of giving you an answer in the prescribed fashion, like okay, uh, I will say indoor because the weather is
Okay.
always good indoors.
Very true. Very true. You're logistical and I like it. And my final question is, do you prefer the world without the internet or as we are today? Which one do you prefer?
A difficult one, but possibly before.
Okay. That's an interesting and popular answer on the Europe Drum Show.
Mhm.
Um, you've toured the world. You've played with some huge names. You've educated so many drummers. What for you, in your many years behind the kit, has been the biggest Spinal Tap moment of your career?
Okay, in terms of one of the moments where I really had to pinch myself was uh, having David Garibaldi in my studio and just having sit him opposite of me, and now my hero is asking me questions about how I hold a stick. So that was something surreal, I should say. There was also another one about Daniel Adair because Daniel approached me through email saying, "Yeah, mate, are you free somewhere this week? I would have a couple of questions." And I was under the impression of getting to the bottom of my email inbox, and I wrote something like, and I think I don't even mention that to Daniel, but I would write something like, well, it's difficult. Like you can have a free spot like in 3 months or now. And then before I was to press send, I thought, Daniel Adair, what? I know this
You
name.
do.
Why do I know that?
Yes.
I said, Jesus Christ, Daniel Adair. I said, of course we can meet this week, Daniel. That,
Brilliant.
that was a fun one. Yeah.
Wow. So you've taught. I mean, how do you approach a drum lesson? Or what was it he wanted? He wanted advice, a lesson, tips. What was it that he was after?
I would rather, I mean, these situations I wouldn't really consider as a lesson per se. Like someone comes in and you say, okay, get your book and your sticks out and now play me what your homework was. It's not like
Yes.
that. Oftentimes, uh, I mean, the bigger the names are, the more basic the questions seem to be. Like, uh,
Wow.
how do I hold my stick So, or how do I use my stick so it flies straight? Do you feel a contact between the wood and this area of your palm? Do you feel that contact when you play this and that? It's that sort of a question. The bigger the names get, the easier, let's say, the questions are, or
Wow.
the more basic, let me say, the questions are. Uh, and it's not like, okay, how do you go with non-nuplets as groups of nine in 7/8 time, and you
Yes.
incorporate accents and flams on the second, fifth, and ninth position? How do you do that? This
Wow.
is not the kind of question you get. You get questions like apparently easy stuff, but not easy at all. So simple oftentimes is not easy. I think you know what I'm saying.
Yes, yes, and to receive an email from the drummer of Nickelback to ask you questions, I mean, that's a huge compliment to you, right?
Uh, I look at it as that, true, and it's also, I mean, it says a lot about trust that you need to earn. I mean, both on
Yes.
a personal level, but also on a level of, I mean, expertise about the instrument. But it's that trust that you need to earn with every student, and
Mm,
and trust is one of the single most important things in an educational setting. If the student is not trusting you as a human being or not trusting your expertise, the lesson is not going to happen. So
hmm.
forget it right away, go separate ways, and that's going to be it.
You're going to be the person in the spotlight on in March when you grace the main stage of the Europe Drum Show.
If I do.
How does it how does it feel to be asked to play such an enormous and world respected weekend of drums?
Well, it's always a big compliment to be asked to perform on such an event, and it's also a great opportunity to network. I mean, believe it or not, but just as people in the audience are networking, they are people, they are meeting friends, they are meeting other drumming buddies, and just to network and to meet other like-minded drumming addicts, if you will. And same goes for people on stage or behind the stage. You look forward to crossing paths again with Steve Smith or with other people that you met and performed before. And I'm just bringing up Steve's name because he was guest in your show just right before this slot, so this is why.
He was.
But yeah, that's always fun, and I remember moments when Steve and I were performing at Beijing Drum Fest, China Drum Fest, and we were just spending a great afternoon backstage in a tent, just exchanging things on a pad. And how do you do that? And oh, wait, that looks different. My hand looks different. So how is it that this works with your hand? Can you show me more? So it's that
Mm,
sort of a conversation which is going back and forth, and that's always something that obviously you only get to experience if you have, I mean, a real big event with lots of international people and great artists that have influenced
mhm,
the course of drumstick playing
mhm.
over time. Yeah.
Yes. Why do you? I mean, you mentioned you and the legend that is Steve Smith. You know, sitting in a tent, playing with a practice pad together. Why do you think it is that drummers are 9 times out of 10 made of the ingredients of a natural extrovert? Why do you think drummers like to share ideas? Because there's let's for example, if you're a guitarist, you might not be so forthcoming with sharing ideas, or if you play a different instrument. But drummers, they're like, "Hey, did you see? Can you show me how you do that, or what technique you're using?" We share information. Why do you think drummers are like that?
I think it's to some degree in the DNA of drumming people, it reminds me a little bit of there's a paragraph in Sanford Moeller's book that was published somewhere. I'm not exactly sure, in the late 20s, could be, or late 20s or 30s. Anyhow, doesn't matter. Let's say, roughly speaking, say 90 years ago. And there's a paragraph underneath a rudimental standard piece, which is The Downfall of Paris. And Moeller writes something about the piece, which, and I cannot quote the exact words he's bringing up here, but he says, whenever people of the brotherhood of drummers are meeting and they are playing The Downfall of Paris together, it's the beginning of a lifelong friendship.
Wow.
Lifelong friendship. These are the words he brings up. And I mean, this goes back in the history of drumming. And just at the same point in time, it is drummers often were also having a task to negotiate between peace and war, between two different parties in warfare. And that was what drummers needed to do. And in order to be that, you needed to be trustworthy, you needed to be a good person, you needed to have your big boy pants on, right? You needed to be all of that. And I think that kind of provided a drumming DNA, I think, which we still share today. It's different as the musical DNA of other instruments.
Yes.
Whatever you bring up, I don't know what it is. It's different.
That is absolutely mind-blowing. I didn't know that. But that's a testament to the type of person that a drummer is. And even the UK drum show, or any kind of drum event, really, whenever there's a group of drummers, usually they will obviously end up in the pub, but they just click, don't they? They just connect. And I don't see another instrument where that happens so much and so openly.
True. I would, there's nothing to add from here. It's just like that. And I've experienced it like that many, many times in many different, more serious or more fun situations. But it's really true. It is that. Yes.
So you have educated hundreds of people, and you have, so many people have been inspired by your work, inspired by your playing, inspired by your educational books and things like that. What do you think you're going to be doing at the Europe Drum Show on the main stage that is going to be perhaps different to maybe what other people might be doing? How are you going to perhaps stand out? What's going to be a bit quirky about your performance and a bit different?
Well, I mean, first of all, I'm going to be myself. I'm not going to try to be someone else, but really bringing it down to what you guys can expect from my performance. It's of course going to be playing some tracks with my band Flux, and also a new project which is just on the horizon now, which will be called CH3, which is obviously a trio, which is under my name. There's also going to be the ever-present solo spot that I'm preparing, which is mostly something improvised, but coming with lots of things that I just leave up to the moment, really. And I think there's also going to be at least some opportunity for a couple of bits and pieces about drumming education. Because one thing I see these days is that you have loads of information out there, but I mean, years ago we were all struggling with finding information. Now that problem we don't have anymore. We have loads of information, but the problem often is to understand, okay, what is good and trustworthy information? What is the sort of information that takes you from A to B? and uh, and this is where I have a thing or two to say.
Wow.
by by connecting the dots from the past, from my mentors Chapin and Famularo and Al Miller, and that generation of drummers that came before, and as we all know, there's nothing new under the sun, right? You just need to take a good look around, and you need to take a look in the rear mirror, and you will find most everything which there is around today. and and that's just totally interesting. But understanding the past is important if you want to shape the future. And this is what my whole perspective about drumming is all about. And you will find this condensed both in my tracks, in my solo, and in my educational speeches. This is what I stand for.
I just want to sit on the floor in your studio with you and listen to you talk. That's all I want to do. You are one of the most interesting people I have ever spoken to. I love how you view things. I love how you explain yourself and how you explain all of those amazing things. I find you completely captivating. And if you're like this without sitting behind the drum kit, I absolutely can't bloody wait until you're playing. You're going to bring that energy, to the kit. I can't wait. It's going to be phenomenal. Um, Take me back to your earliest memory of sitting behind a drum kit. Do you remember getting handed a pair of sticks for the first time? If so, how did it feel? What were you doing? What were your surroundings?
I don't remember if or at least I'm not sure what the very first point in time was when I was sitting behind a set of drums. But my earliest memory of me behind a drum set is um, trying to trying to create a soundtrack for the stories that you invent as a kid. And the drum set that I had was a very basic one. It consisted of there was a bass drum, there was one rack tom, there was one cymbal, there was a snare, and there was a pair of bongos. And this is what I had, and I used to just come up with stories. Okay, here's something about the knight and the dragon, and here's the wizard, and here's the tiger, and you would, I don't know, and here's a thunderstorm, and there's lightning, whatever, and you create the soundtrack for your own stories, just like kids are inventing stories when they have time to do that. And this is my earliest memory of me behind a set of drums, I would say.
Wow. And going from that earliest memory, if somebody was listening or watching this in 100, 200 years, what would you like your legacy to be? How would you like to be remembered?
A very good question, actually. And let me say, I would like to be remembered as someone that who was able to add value to this whole educational field that we see today about drums and drumming. I would like to be remembered as taking care of Jim Chapin's legacy about molar technique, taking Jim's heritage of collapsed and expanded rudiments one step further, understanding the teachings and the legacy of those drumming giants on whose shoulders we are standing. At times we may not know about it, but I would like to be seen as that person bridging the gap between the past and the present, and leaving out all the redundant BS stories,
Yeah.
right? But taking education to the next level and combining the capacity of, okay, this guy knows how to play, he knows how to sound good in a band, but at the same time, this guy wrote a couple of books which are really essential to drumming, and this guy also was just an outstanding teacher. I would like to be remembered as that. This is at least what I aspire to do. I hope I manage to do that, but this is at least what I'm trying to go for.
And Klaus, thank you so much for joining us on the Europe Drum Show official podcast. It's been a pleasure to have you here. And once again, we cannot wait to see you perform.
I'm excited to be there and I look forward to meeting you.